Working on your communication skills? In today's video, let's examine 7 signs of toxic communication. You know, communication is the fundamental part of so many aspects of our life. How do you relate to your husband or your wife, your boyfriend or girlfriend, to your best friend? What's the communication like at work with your coworkers, with your boss? Even in just daily skills like at the grocery store, what's it like communicating with the cashier? It can impact every hour of our life. And it's something we continually have to learn, right? Because depending on how kids are communicating nowadays to how we communicated when we were kids, and flip that around, vice versa, how are we communicating now as adults? That may be very different to how our parents communicated. And the thing is that when we can't communicate properly and we're keeping our feelings in, burying what we really would like to say, we're trying to say it, they're just not getting it. They don't understand me. If that's how we're living our life, then we're likely going to have some secondary issues related to that. Feel angry, pissed off that we're misunderstood. We may feel ashamed for not being able to express ourselves properly. Resentment towards a person who seems to be blowing us off when we want to share our thoughts. And then maybe resentment towards ourselves for taking that. How are you communicating to your child if you're a parent? So on and on and on. Communication is a big issue. Let's look at 7 toxic ways we communicate, so therefore you can catch yourself if you're communicating in this way or somebody's communicating to you in this way. You can notice some red flags and begin turning it around, hopefully. Number 1, we don't use I statements. When you're communicating, it needs to come from where you're at, what you're all about. You're wanting to express your thoughts. We need an I in there. I feel blank. My thoughts are this. They have to come from you because otherwise people aren't going to know how to react or even give you feedback. Maybe we weren't raised in a household where we were allowed to speak our mind. We weren't supposed to have an opinion. Our parents told us to shut up. So a child growing up in this way may get in the habit of saying, well, you this and you that, blaming the other people, projecting onto them, when in reality that's never going to be helpful in communication for many reasons. But number 1, let's say because the person hearing this may simply disagree with you. That's not true. That's not why I did that. I didn't really say that. So we can't go with you statements because that's not going to be effective or helpful. We have to own our stuff and say I. It makes me angry when you're an hour late for dinner and you didn't call or text me as to what's going on. So it's much more to do with how you feel about something and you're expressing your thoughts, your feelings. Which ties into number 2, we don't own our own stuff. So toxic communication involves we're not being honest, we're not owning what we're feeling. We're not sharing our truth. People can often see through that. They can tell you're shifting, you're dodging something, and then you're not going to be taken seriously probably. Or they may believe it, but you're actually misrepresenting something. You're softening something that actually has a lot more meaning to you. So then that's going to cause problems down the road perhaps. So we have to own it. Don't minimize your feelings. If you're angry, use the word I'm angry, not like I'm a little upset. If you're sad, own the sadness, not just I'm having a blue sort of day. It's okay to have just a blue sort of day, but not if you're feeling sad. Sad can be a deeper, stronger emotion, so own the sadness. Number 3, we're saying what we think the other person wants to hear rather than what we really want to communicate, our truthful, our authentic self. So this is also called being a people pleaser, being codependent. It can also be called toxic positivity or toxic negativity. So we're so concerned about how somebody else may take something, we're worried about their feelings more so than our own feelings and our own self expressing ourselves, that we put ourselves on the sacrificial chopping block, right? We pay the price so the other person supposedly is not paying a price, but we don't even know that the other person is going to quote unquote pay a price. They may be fine with what you're saying. And if they have a negative reaction, then let them have their own reaction. It's up to them to figure that out. It's part of their journey, their life journey, their growth. Don't try to figure that out for them or protect them from their own reaction. Let them have their own reaction, whatever it is. The main thing is you're not so taking into account someone else's feelings that you're denying who you are. That's toxic. Number 4, we're very black and white, very rigid in our communication style. Life is much more about living in the gray area, right? Most of life is, in fact, the gray area. So it's healthier to communicate in that way. So when we say things like, you always this, or I never that, always and never, blanket statements that can cover a culture, a race, a grouping of people somehow, lumping people together, labels and so on, is not going to be a helpful, healthy way to communicate because it's really not the truth. Perhaps the majority believe or see something one way, but the majority is not all, everybody, always, never, and so on. So look for the gray area in your communication style. Number 5, we don't really listen in a conversation. We're already thinking what we want to say next, or we're just so distracted in our own mind that we don't care. We think we don't care. We don't want to know. We don't want to hear what the other person is saying. Well, is that going to be a healthy, helpful way to communicate? Not really. Over time, especially with good friends, a significant other, they're going to notice that and resent it. Listen, deeply listen, hear what the person is saying. If you don't understand, let them know you don't understand. If you need further clarification, ask for more clarification. But without hearing, more problems may be created. Number 6, in a conversation, we're not aware of where our emotions, our responses are coming from. Suddenly we feel sort of defensive. We feel our heart racing. We're having a strong reaction internally. We may be blocking it, trying to dissociate from it, but there it is. You don't know yourself. Let's specifically look at defensiveness, for example, although it can apply to many feelings. With defensiveness, if you're not clear what is triggering you, why you're getting pissed off at this person and wanting to put up some walls and boundaries and push them away in a very forceful, mean, aggressive way perhaps, if you don't know where that's coming from and you're doing that with somebody important to you, that's going to cause a lot of trouble in the relationship. Also, it won't be helpful at work, right? If the boss is suggesting something to you and you blow up and throw a temper tantrum because you think it's unfair, do you know why you feel that way? What's being triggered? Is this related to a childhood issue? Is it about some memory? Somehow you were mistreated in the past and it ties into this theme or topic? These are all important. We have to know ourselves well enough so that we can communicate in a healthy, effective way. Number 7, we have very little empathy for others in our communication style. What's that about? Empathy is such a natural human emotion. We're able to see things, at least gauge it. We may not agree with it, but we're able to gauge where they're coming from. It helps us see things from their point of view. It's an important trait to have and to develop this trait. So as you're communicating, if somebody is sharing something very difficult, hard for them to perhaps communicate to you, do you have empathy for what you're witnessing? It'll be very helpful if you can or do. Not to take on their feelings, but to feel what it may be like. This may lead to better communication between the two of you. So there's some quickies I just mentioned there, toxic ways people communicate. If you catch yourself using any of these in your life, through your awareness, you can begin turning that around and indeed working on it and therefore improving your communication style. Please leave me some comments below. Please let me know what communication is like for you in your life. Please subscribe to my mental health YouTube channel if you like these kind of videos. And until next week, this is Brad Shore signing off from Ask a Shrink.